So with me today, I have Steve Barras, and he is the president of Gulf Coast Filters. And I'm going to tell you, I've heard of Gulf Coast Filters ever since I've been in trucking. It's a name that you hear about, especially with owner operators that pay very particular attention to their truck and their fuel mileage and their oil changes and the expense that goes into owning a truck. And I was looking for some people to talk to at the truck show about just different things to help our owner operators. And this is one that I came across, the name Gulf Coast Filters. And then I got in touch with Steve, and man, we had a conversation the other day that was right. What I was thinking was just telling about, the history of Gulf Coast Filters and what all the benefits are of Gulf Coast Filters. And there's a lot to that, and we had a good conversation. But now I got Steve in person with me here at the Mid-America Truck Show. I appreciate you coming over and sitting down with me, Steve.
A used semi-truck is a great way to kick off your career as an owner-operator on a budget, and buying from a reputable dealer like Aero Truck Sales ensures you're getting a reliable truck that fits your needs. They carry trucks from all the major manufacturers in the trucking industry and perform a thorough inspection of every truck on their lot to ensure safety and quality and give you confidence that you're getting a reliable truck that will last you for years at a price that you can afford. Being a longtime partner with Oakley Trucking and the Oakley Podcast, we trust them to provide our owner-operators with a truck that fits their needs and matches our qualifications. So whether you're a first-time owner-operator or just looking for a new-to-you rig, be sure to give Keith Wilson and Trey Visor a call at 573-216-6047 and let them know you heard it here on the Oakley Podcast.
Jeremy, it's a pleasure to be here. I saw the invitation. I was like, yeah, I can do that. I want to do that. That'd be great. I'm a single horse operator, so to speak, and so sometimes it's like, well, that might be a little challenge. No, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. It's a good opportunity. I can address the world that we deal with here. The owner operators are near and dear to my heart. I deal with them every day. Yeah, I look at oil samples from customers. I grade the papers, is what I say. I read the laboratory reports and their comments, and then I take it a step further and do the human interpretation of it, because a laboratory will spit out a computer-generated report, which is limited to what you program into the computer to look for, whereas I can look at the report and analyze the data and add to what the laboratory report spits out, and at the end of the day, I can help. Our goal in life, my goal is to safely extend the life of an individual's engine.
Okay, so before we get into that, because I know I can tell you're passionate, you want to dive on into this. We've got a lot of listeners out there that may not have any idea what we're talking about. So at first, I'd like to get a little history of Gulf Coast Filters and what they are. But first, tell me about Steve Barras. Give me a little bit of, where you live, your family, what you like to do.
The most basic information is that I'm a God-fearing individual that has a great passion for working with people. I've always been a people sort of person. Have respect for God and for country. I like the opportunity to work with people in this venue, Gulf Coast Filters. I had never heard of Gulf Coast Filters like so many other people. And back in 1986, I had an oil field boat rental company, and so I rented boats to the oil field people, and I had a boat that was working out of Venice, Louisiana, and I was getting slaughtered with contaminated fuel. And so we're here talking about oil filters, but my initial blush with Gulf Coast Filters, and I'll go back a little bit and talk about the origin of Gulf Coast Filters, but my original blush was because of contaminated fuel. And I met a guy, somebody said, well, you need to call Charlie Sims. I'm like, okay. So I called Charlie Sims. Charlie is was the originator, the founder of Gulf Coast Filters. He had worked with a guy from California who was tinkering around with filtration. He created a model that would work, but he had no interest in the long haul and to be able to consistently reproduce and put that product out. Charlie, a retired military veteran, was all over that. He had a great interest in it, great passion in it, and developed the system that we have today. And out of an old machine shop on Canal Road in Gulf Coast, Mississippi, Charlie did something which the average man would have thought would be impossible. Antique machinery, a guy who was a mechanic but sort of retired, and sons and a son-in-law who were not machinists, and trying to consistently produce a product with inconsistent machinery was borderline crazy. So fast forward, Charlie was the developer / inventor of the Gulf Coast filter as we know it today. He and I came in contact back in 1986. I bought these filters to put on this boat that was struggling. Every day we were having fuel filter changes on the generators. So at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm struggling. I've got two spin-on filters, and I've got an aftermarket filter. Before it was called, I'll name it. It was a doll filter, and I felt like it was better than the Raycors because it had a better quality housing. Anyhow, there's my crew members are changing filters every day, and I'm calling around, and this guy one of my friends in Louisiana says, call Charlie Simmons. I called Charlie. I bought some of his filters, told my people, put them on the boat. Let's see what's going to happen. Run that generator 24 hours, change the filter. Run that generator 24 hours, change the filter. And let's see what happens. Call me as soon as you have a problem. Well, that was the first shock of my life, I guess, because a week later, and they had not called again about engine problems, clouded filters. I'm like, so, my God.
We got something here.
Oh, my God. And that was the beginning of my experience with Gulf Coast Filters. So that was almost 40 years ago, but Gulf Coast Filters actually had started about roughly 45 years ago, in the 70s when they first incorporated. It's gone a long ways, 40 years, 44 and a half, 45, whatever.
So you partnered up with them at that time?
I became an honorary distributor, as Charlie said. I'll make you an honorary distributor, and at least you'll be able to get your filters at a better price. I'm like, great, I'll be glad to do that. Well, I led the company in sales for numerous years. Outside of the office, nobody could touch me. I led the company in sales, and it was like, not because I'm smart, but I got a great product. And, oh, wow. Yeah, that surprised me. I sound like I'm patting myself on the back, but I was quite humbled to the fact, like, really?
So really? How long you been with them?
Almost 40 years now. Started 1986, and 2 years from now, it'd be 40 years.
Wow. That's impressive, Steve.
3 years ago, not quite 3.5 years ago, Jerry, one of Charlie's sons, was heading up the company, and he was ready to get out. And there's people here that know Jerry and his wife Colleen and love them. He and I are great friends. I love Jerry and Colleen myself. But they were ready to do something else in life and transition, and I was ready to take the bull by the horns and run with it. I love what I'm doing, and I can't, so I took charge of Gulf Coast Filters, and I've been steadily moving forward with it. The Sims family took it and carried it, and Charlie actually passed away in 2004. And Jerry and I were on our way to a fuel filtration demonstration, as it were. We were exhibiting at the Miami International Boat Show, as a matter of fact. And I told Jerry, I said, Jerry, we left the funeral home and I said, you don't have to come. I can do this. He and I went, and I think Charlie would have wanted it no other way. He was like, no, you need to go.
Right.
We went, and so here I am, the owner of Gulf Coast Filters, the president of Gulf Coast Filters, as you said, the owner, and whatever title you want to call me. I'm also the chief cook, and bottle washer, and whatever it takes. I do what it's my.
It's a one man operation.
Basically, yes. We have had for several years now a machine company in Mobile, Alabama, and I refer to them as my manufacturing and distribution arm. So they do everything from source raw material to get it in, process it, make it into the filter canister, the painting, the stickers, everything. It's on the shelf and ready to ship out. When a customer places an order, I send them a purchase order. They respond to that with shipping it out to the customer according to the directions that I give them in the purchase order.
Okay. And I mean, it's it's moving right along, growing. I mean, it's grown a lot since you've been in it, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it really has. The key element is that I'm boots on the ground every day, and when somebody wants to talk to Gulf Coast Filters, they're not calling an 800 number. They're calling my direct cell phone number. And when you call me, Jeremy, it's not like you're going through red tape and barriers and so forth. It's like I answer the phone like, Jeremy, what's happening? How are you today? Where are you? And that's the relationship. And it's like, yeah, you knew it was me, did you? I'm like, absolutely, I know it's you. I have you programmed in.
So for us that don't know, what is a Gulf Coast filter? What is its purpose?
In the industry that we're talking to today, a Gulf Coast filter is a bypass oil filter. Essentially, you have two filter systems on. You have one basic filter system on your truck today. It used to be the bypass oil filter was the standard in the industry, but that changed. And today, the standard in the industry is your spin-on oil filter. You have one on your car, your truck, whatever. Everybody's got a spin-on oil filter. The bypass oil filter, on the other hand, allows 1.5 to 2 quarts a minute to flow through it, and by flowing through at a gradual rate into a media which is very absorbent, it removes moisture, and we have proven it. We have gone to testing in as a Bonavista Laboratories report that I have on my website, and it shows that they did the testing. I say we, but it's actually they did the testing on our filter and a competitive filter, and they documented that the Gulf Coast filter will remove particles below 1 micron in size at a 99% plus efficiency rate. So we're taking out all these impurities, and the experts in engine wear and tear say that you must control below 1 micron particles and below in order to effectively control the wear rates in your engine. Well, we nailed it. We've proved that we can effectively control wear rate particles below 1 micron in size. We also
does it replace the existing oil filter?
It does not. Good question. What it is, the full flow filter has its purpose. I'd say it's there to catch the nuts and bolts and stuff like that. And really, it's smaller particles that it catches, but it's limited to between 20 and 25 microns. And I tell people every day that using a 20 to 25 micron filter element to control 1 micron particles, as the experts say you have to do, is like using chicken wire to keep mosquitoes out.
It's not going to work.
It ain't happening. Exactly.
So where does this mount?
Yeah.
And how big is it, I guess?
It's about 28 inches tall.
Okay.
And so most commonly you'll find them mounted on frame rails. Sometimes people will mount them on an exhaust stack. So other people will mount them on a toolbox.
So it don't need to be right next to the engine.
I like to keep them out of the engine compartment. It's like keep it away from the heat, and keep it out of the kitchen. And the reason for that is expressed by people who have run these filters. They've been running in the desert during the summer months where extreme heats are encountered, and their before and after is once they put the Gulf Coast filter on, the reduction is like 6 to 8 degrees Fahrenheit oil temperature. It's like, whoa, to them that's astronomical. To me, I'm like, well, that sounds good, but they tell me, oh no, that's significant. That's really
so
significant.
It's oil lines run to the filter and back to the motor?
That's right.
Okay.
So you're connected to a pressure point on your engine, and you're going through the filter, and then back out at a rate of 1.5 quarts a minute, 1.5 to 2 quarts a minute max, goes back from the filter to the oil pan. And so it just constantly cycles like that. Whereas your full flow filter, well, it's doing a different job. It's catching, like I said, the nuts and bolts. And so now you have your full flow filter doing its job, but you have something that's purifying the oil and removing the harmful particles, the moisture, which contributes to acid buildup. And so now you got a system that will really, really do an effective job of extending the life of your engine safely.
Because it's the whole plan is for it to be brand new oil all the time, right?
I've had oil on my hands. I've put oil on my hands today out of a bottle that a customer brought me. And that oil sample, and I've showed you my hands a while ago, and you looked at them, and you can't tell which hand I put the oil on. If I did the same demonstration with motor oil out of one of those trucks in the parking lot that doesn't have a Gulf Coast filter, and you just a standard filtration, you pull that dipstick out and touch it and roll it around, rub it around in your hand, it'd take you a week to clean your hands off good. I mean, I tell people, say, yeah, you'd probably have to sandblast it to get it off. With the Gulf Coast filter, you can't tell which hand I put the oil in today, and I haven't washed my hands. I've wiped it off with a towel, and that's it. You can't tell. So what that means is it looks like it to the visual. It looks like new motor oil, or pretty darn close. It's just slightly. It's like coffee. It's coffee is not dirty. It's just dark. You can dip your fingers in coffee in it, you still see your fingerprint. You can dip your finger in motor oil that's been cleaned with Gulf Coast filter bypass oil filters, and you can see your fingerprint.
LubeZone has been servicing single trucks and truck fleets for more than 20 years across 12 locations nationwide. LubeZone specializes in quick, full-service oil changes that take approximately 30 to 40 minutes. They also offer tractor-trailer grease, gearbox service, generator service, reefer service, and DOT inspections. They aim to go the extra mile when it comes to quality control. This means your tractor is checked not only once, but 2 times to ensure all service and parts meet their guaranteed quality and standards. No other service center knows semi-trucks better than LubeZone. If your truck needs serviced, check out lubezone.com to find all of their locations, and when you stop by, let them know you heard it here on the Oakley Podcast.
I mean, this is revolutionary if somebody thinks about it, with trying to do what you have done for years by putting this bypass filter and pumping your oil through it, existing oil through it, and to get all the impurities out of the oil to keep it so your engine thinks it's new oil all the time. And you can do that, for how long, Steve?
The answer is indefinitely. All things being equal, it's incredible what I've seen. A few examples, Jeremy. A few examples, or a guy named Joseph Van Buskirk, whose filter I published on my Facebook page. And Joseph's engine had 1.6 million miles without pulling the drain plug out, simply servicing the filter on a regular basis. And at that point, he rolled in a set of rods and main bearings. And that was it. I said, how'd they look? He said, well, the mechanic said they look great. There's very little sign of any wear on them. I'm like, okay.
1.6 million miles?
1.6 million miles. I've had numerous.
And he never changed the oil.
I tell that's hard to swallow. That statement right there. It is. It's hard to swallow. It's basically, in a sense, it's absolutely true. Here's the real interpretation should be. I tell people, don't say you never change oil. Say that you change the oil 2.5 gallons at a time, because every time
Good way to look at it. You're changing the oil all the time.
We're changing the oil, but we're never pulling the drain plug out. So you pull the drain plug out on your truck. If it's got a 10-gallon system, you have to replace 10 gallons of oil plus whatever the factory filters hold. So it's a 10-gallon system too. Whereas with the Gulf Coast filter, you're going to service the Gulf Coast filter, which means replace the 2 elements that are in there with 2 new ones, and you're going to add 2.5 gallons of oil. Well, the difference between 10 gallons and 2.5 gallons is there's 75% savings, and that goes to your bottom line. So if you're buying oil and you have to buy 10 gallons, which one would you rather buy, 10 gallons or 2.5?
Right.
And if you had a cleaner engine continually, it's really beginning to be a no-brainer.
And how often do you service the Gulf Coast filter?
There's a little variation there, because I look at laboratory reports, and if I see that your engine there's something that's not exactly right, if the fuel soot's beginning to build up a little bit, we're going to ask questions. But at the end of the day, how often between the pat answer is between 10 and 15,000. We have some engines, the X15, DD15, such as that, 15,000 mile service intervals for your Gulf Coast filter. Your 34, your CATs, and some of your series 60s, your ISXs, about 12. Most of those in the 12,500 range service intervals. So with those service intervals, it's keeping the oil clean continually. That's that word continually. You got to highlight that, because when the oil that I put in my hands with 918,000 miles, that which I put on my hands today is that kind of oil. It's been processed. It's been serviced like that frequently.
So the way I see it, so you just like my vehicles, I change the oil myself in all my vehicles. I always have. Something my grandpa taught me, to do this, forever. So I've always done it. It's super simple on GMCs.
Old school.
To do, and I enjoy doing it. But as thinking about this, it makes sense, because you're changing the oil continuously, to where I'm putting new oil in, I'm running it 3,000 to 5,000 miles. Well, when I take it out, it's black. So I get a between that 3 and 5, let's say 4,000 miles. Well, so many thousand of those miles, I got some good new oil in there. Well, the last half I've got burnt bad oil. So your motor is not always operating with good oil in there. It's got some used oil in there that's getting worse. And in my mind now, I see what you're doing is it's continuously that whole time.
I asked the question, well, why do they tell you to change oil? And the obvious answer is because they want you to have clean oil in your engine. It's not good to have dirty oil in your engine, so they tell you. So by default, they're also telling you that those factory filters aren't keeping your oil clean. Yeah. Duh. So the Gulf Coast filter, on the other hand, when you reach the prescribed service interval, whether it's 10,000, 12,500, or 15,000, whatever it is, the first thing you do is pull an oil sample, because we want documentation. I tell people all the time, I want those oil samples. I can't help you, and I tell them I'm the resident biatch when it comes to that. I will get all over your case about getting oil samples in, because I have to know what's going on in order to be able to help you. And so I get a little preachy about that, a little bit passionate about it, but I smile when I do it, and I let them know I'm smiling.
So how does that help you by having oil samples?
When I get the reports, when I get the laboratory report, if there's something not right, I spot it. And my job is my self-proclaimed job is to be able to spot these things early on, nip it in the bud, and prevent the catastrophic failure. I go to a continuing education program with Polaris Laboratories. I go there on a regular basis to the annual summit, and then intermittently during the year they have programs, continuing education programs that are offered online, and I attend to those things so that I can stay on the leading edge of the technology, and I know what's going on in the industry. I know what's, and I'm better able to serve you.
Makes a big difference too. You know, it is as the Gulf Coast Filters. I'm assuming. Have you ever looked into being with it's always after market. I mean, they're not going to build trucks. I mean, with anything like this or the innovation that you've figured out. I mean, you would think at some point maybe they would want to do that on a brand new truck. I mean, from the beginning. Have you ever had any talks with them or anything, Steve?
I think the term planned obsolescence probably rings a bell at this point in the conversation. They want to sell parts.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not trying to make them look like the bad guy. I mean, they're trying to get oil companies to manufacture a better oil so that they can look better environmentally speaking. They're trying to get, there's different reasons why they want a better oil. They want to offer a greatly extended drain interval. But it's not reality. I just recently saw a lab report from an engine, one of those. Well, you can run at 50,000 miles between oil changes. And I got that report, and it was just a random report, and it was kind of like a godsend. Fell into my hands, but I don't know how that guy. He must have gone to a truck stop that had one of my oil samples. The lab got it. They sent the results to me. And a 53, he said, I think I'd ran a little over on my oil change. I said, really? What was it? How much? About 3,000 over. I said, so you ran it, say, 15, 18,000, something like that? Oh, no, I had 53,000 on it. I'm like, oh, you're one of those guys. I said, well, let me tell you, your base number reading on this sample is 0.03, bright red. I mean, like red X item, if you want to call it that. Back in my Air Force days, if you had a red X, you definitely weren't. That's a no-fly for that airplane. No way. Anyhow, red X on that report mean you change. And they suggested that he monitor the oil drain interval. I'm like, suggest heck. You change that oil and change it much more frequently. 0.03, what that means, Jeremy, is that there's nothing in that oil to protect from acid buildup and from corrosion that happens because of acids. You're going to destroy that. It's a recipe for disaster. His oxidation number was 32. Again, a red X sort of, bright red. Just horrible looking report, and I'm like, I am so glad to have that report in my hands because I can show people, look, here's so
a lot of your job's educating.
It is
educating people.
It is,
especially owner operators. A big part of that.
A huge part of it, absolutely. We can go talk about the environmental aspect of this whenever you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you. I hesitate to say this, but I can't wait.
Well, let's talk about
from
the
an environmental
yeah.
standpoint. The big companies are out there. The oil companies and the engine companies are working in conjunction to try and produce a better motor oil that'll achieve maybe a 2% better carbon footprint for these engines, and maybe even greater reduction in carbon footprint. I'm like, time out. You see this filter right here? You see these laboratory reports? I am safely extending oil drain intervals by adding 2.5 gallons of oil instead of dumping 10 gallons and adding 10 gallons. So there's a 75% reduction in oil purchase, therefore carbon footprint right there. And the spin-on filter, you change it every third time that you service the Gulf Coast filter. There's a 66 2/3% reduction in carbon footprint right there. You're running a cleaner engine, And a healthier engine, it's going to be more efficient, and it's going to reduce the carbon footprint. And I can't quantify that, but I can tell you that it's just plain good old common sense that a cleaner, healthier engine runs better and has less emission than a worn-out engine.
You would think environmental people would be coming after you to help push your product. I mean, really, because that's what that only makes sense.
You're absolutely right. I tell when I have here at the show today and yesterday, and when I have somebody with a fleet, a significant fleet, then I say, look, your brain trust up in the offices there, they're going to have a hard time swallowing this business of using these filters, and because it's self-preservation. Basically, they're taking care of their own jobs. They can argue with my dollars and cents, and they can even argue with, well, that's not. It may be profitable in some ways, but they can argue with that when it comes to the environmental. And I say, look, there's your 75% reduction, or 80% if you got a 12.5 gallon sump. There's where your carbon footprint really gets taken to task. We can really do something about that, and so it's like, and I tell these people that, look, they can argue with with dollars and cents, but they can't argue with the carbon footprint thing, because there it is.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm like, whoop, there it is, as the saying goes.
Oakley Trucking is a 100% owner-operator company. We specialize in hopper bottom, end dump, and pneumatic trailers. We provide the trailer free of charge, and you provide the truck. We have a large customer base that reaches the whole United States as well as parts of Canada. Our owner-operators live anywhere from Texas to North Carolina to Pennsylvania to Wisconsin and everywhere in between, and we get them home weekends. We take it seriously when you join Oakley Trucking because we need you to be successful. Oakley offers great benefits and competitive mileage pay, so you know that when your wheels are turning, you're generating money no matter if you're loaded or empty. We understand that you want to make a good living and that you make our living. We only take on independent contractors, and to be honest with you, we are very particular on who we lease on. You must have a good driving record, good work history, and clean, dependable truck. So if you're interested in Oakley Trucking or just want some more information, you can go to oakleytrucking.com, listen to our weekly podcast, The Oakley Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
I'm passionate about getting that message out there. I'm sorry, Jeremy. I tell people, look, and I'll use the exact language. I'm not no damn tree hugger, but I believe in doing my responsible thing toward the environment, and this is a great opportunity. It really is. When switching subjects a little bit, but when the Gulf War ended, the military had A-1 Abrams tanks that came back from overseas, and they were brought back into the storage yards and so forth. Well, the Abrams tanks had two fuel cells, one forward, one aft, and you could not choose which tank. You couldn't override it manually, so you always ran out of the forward tank, and the sortie never lasted long enough to get into the aft tank. So consequently, the aft tanks came back horribly contaminated, and you start thinking in terms of, okay, so that's 500 or 1,000 gallons in each one of those tanks, and you multiply that times thousands and thousands. That was a gazillion-dollar impact. What did they do? They put a Gulf Coast fuel polishing system. It was trailer-mounted, big old system, trailer-mounted systems, and went to each one of those tanks, and they'd pull the fuel out of the one cell, and then they had two tanks on the trailer itself that the fuel polisher was mounted on, and pull the dirty fuel out and put clean fuel in, and then recycle the dirty fuel, and then the next tank that they went to did the same thing. It saved taxpayers and the environment because the cost of the original cost of purchasing the fuel, the cost of removing it and replacing the fuel, and the cost of disposing of the fuel. All those costs, unbelievable.
So that's got to be a bunch.
I kind of digressed and got into the fuel polishing a little bit, but that's what we do.
Yeah.
We're able to keep our fuel polishing systems, and beginning to introduce that to the trucking industry. I've been doing some tests for the last few years on some applications, and next year I expect to be talking a whole lot more about the fuel systems for trucking.
Well, I can tell you one believer you got that was at our booth just a little bit ago before we started recording this was Louis Pugh.
Yeah.
And Louis, man, he is praising the Gulf Coast filters. When he had a truck, he had them on his truck, and he was super excited about it. And you and him had a conversation here about it.
I hadn't really had a good conversation. I've had some conversation with Louis before, but he was fired up. He wanted you to know, Jeremy, no question about it. He wanted you to know how much he thought of Gulf Coast filters. And I mean, you heard, what did he say?
I mean, he loves people like you, companies like Oakley.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're passionate, we're honest, we want people to succeed. We want to show them how, and just like Louis helps them succeed in Washington D.C., you know, does his best he can do, and you helping them with the filter aspect of it and their motor and saving money, and I mean that and then Oakley, here we are trying to, you know, help owner operators succeed. I mean, it's just it was great to hear him talk about that and brag on Gulf Coast filters too, because he's a firm believer in that.
I wanted you to say what Louis said and let the audience hear from your language what he had to say, because I've been doing a lot of talking, and it's like, you know what, he said it, you repeat it. That way it's like, okay, Steve didn't, you know, I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth.
No, Louis, I mean, and he's done it. You know, he's not going to say it if he hadn't done it and experienced it, and he is all about it.
He's got a great reputation in the industry. If people trust anybody in the industry, they're going to trust him. They trust Oakley, and thank God they trust Gulf Coast filters.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I would simply say that our oil analysis program, again, it really stands out. We do it hands-on. We do it, like I said, eyes on. We really pay attention to what's going on. We call the customer and ask him, your viscosity is getting a little high. Are you using Lucas? Or are you using some other product that's as an additive? And the typical response when I see an elevated viscosity is, yeah, I am using Lucas. Well, fine, but you can cut back on the use of it. You're no longer dumping all the oil out, 10 gallons, so you're only replacing 1/4 of the oil. Therefore, put 1 quart of Lucas at a time, and the viscosity comes right back into the sweet spot, and away we go. But it's that working with the customer and getting their pulse on things, knowing what they're doing. And now, if something is not right, if they've been idling a whole lot and begins to fuel soot begins to, and I catch things early on.
So how often do they send a oil sample to you?
I preach send in an oil sample every time you service your filter.
Okay.
And you're betting roughly $26.
Which is every 10 to 15,000 miles they're going to service their filter.
That's right.
Gotcha.
But you're betting $26 against $70,000.
Yes.
Now, which one do you want to? Would you rather spend this one or that one? It's a no-brainer. They all understand stuff like that. They're very. It's amazing how great great businessmen, most owner-operators are. They understand their business. I tell them, look, I'm not going to tell you how to run your business. I can give you suggestions and I can attempt to help you, but I'm not going to begin to tell you how to run your business. I respect you as an owner-operator and a professional, and that's kind of where we are with that.
Yeah, and I bet some of these guys have put a pencil to it and come back and told you how much money they're saving in a year's time. I mean, I bet you got a lot of stories like that. Oh, you even got some numbers, don't you?
I got some numbers. As a matter of fact, an owner-op who runs a 680 kW with a pack core engine in it, he created the guy's a brilliant guy. He's really good at what he does. He's meticulous about his business, and he micromanages, if you don't mind me saying so. He's really sharp at what he does, and he created a spreadsheet which basically, and I asked him for it, but what he created was rather amazing. It said a regular PM versus a Gulf Coast filter PM. And the first year, the total cost for the regular PM, if you did it yourself, was roughly $3,600, whereas with the Gulf Coast filter, including the investment for in parts and labor for the installation of the Gulf Coast filter system, came out to be $3,300. So you bid better than break even after the first year. You've got money in the bank in the first year, and in the second year, well, your total annual for that year, for the regular way of you doing your own change in your own shop, is $3,900, $4,000 round numbers, versus $1,000 Gulf Coast filter way. Now, people understand numbers like that, and his other sheet was if you went into a truck stop and had them do it, and those numbers are like 6,000 or better.
Oh, okay. So the 4,000 was him changing his own oil.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's 70. It was like $7,600.
So if you're saving $3,000 to $5,000 a year.
That's
after the first year.
That's right. It's basically a 3-to-1 reduction in cost. You doing it yourself versus doing it the Gulf Coast filter way. And they tell me, look, it only takes me about 10 minutes. I've got it down pat. I can do it in 10 minutes. Be back on the road. Whereas if you take it into a shop, what is your time worth? You could be rolling down the road instead of messing with that. And if you're paying your shop hand to change oil for you, well, maybe that shop hand is gonna instead of an hour, it's gonna take him 10 minutes. Once again, it makes so much sense. And yeah, I'm a little prejudiced, okay? It may even sound like I'm prejudiced, but.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Has it ever been introduced to just vehicles? Like my personal vehicle, a pickup or a car? Has there been any experimenting with that, Steve?
That has been introduced. And when I first started in 1986, they had a little 1-quart filter for automotive applications. Today you see these 1-quart filters in the trucking industry, and I'm like, no, that's not nearly big enough. Anyhow, the 1-quart filter in an automotive application, back in those days, I could literally open the hood, hop up and sit on the fender well, and I could change my plugs, points, condense my rotor, and all that kind of stuff. Today, if you raise up the hood and put a Kleenex in there, and you can't close the hood.
I know. There's so much.
There's no room. So I finally, I attempted that market for a while, and finally figured out I spend more time trying to figure out how to mount this thing. It's not worth it. So I got away from it. There's some people out there that do it, but the challenges are still the same. There's no room.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering what that would be like if you.
Yeah, it's a great concept, and it just with the tractor trailer, there's still. I looked at a nice, really nice Volvo yesterday, and it's going to be a challenge to find a place to put it on that truck. He's got a 182-inch sleeper. And it's like, wow,
yeah.
But
who does the installation? Do you have?
We don't do installations. I have, again, I'm back to that.
So they have to go to a mechanic shop or something.
I'm a one-horse operation, and but anybody can install one of these filters. Some people say, look, I'm just totally not mechanically inclined, and I say, in that case, you have a mechanic, and you don't have to bring it into one of the big truck companies. Your regular mechanic can do this. It's going to take him roughly 4.5, 5 hours to do the installation complete. But what I ship to you, the over-the-road package that Gulf Coast Filters sells, includes the filter housing. It includes 35 feet of wire braid hose with fittings that are air-equipped quality hose fittings. It includes a 6-pack of spare filter elements, which you use 2 of those each time. It includes 3 oil sample kits, and includes shipping, and then it includes engine-specific adapter kits. So if you're driving a 3406, I got a kit for that. If you have a Series 6, I got a kit for that. An X15, a Volvo, this, that. I got a kit for whatever you got. And so that package means, when I send you that package, what you receive is everything that you need for you or your mechanic to do the installation without having to go get parts from anybody. And that is another huge savings. When you got to start rounding up parts, I've been there and done that. We all have.
And they can call you and order more parts if they need them.
Yeah, they can, but they don't, because I send them everything they need. I make that my business to know. And as newer engines come out and then I upgrade the kits. And that newer pack car engine is a good example. The guy that created that spreadsheet, he sent me part numbers. I told him I wanted all the details, and so he sent me part numbers, and I incorporated that into my engine-specific adapter kit for the pack car MX-13. And so a customer has everything that they need in hand when it arrives. They can go put it on. They're not going to the supply house. It's designed with the customer in mind. Yeah.
Good information, Steve. Very good information. I learned a lot about Gulf Coast Filters just sitting here with you during this podcast. And I tell you what, I'm impressed. Very impressed. Impressed with your, being passionate about it and the product. And it seems like a great product for any owner-operator to have on his truck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to share with you. I appreciate the great questions that you asked, and I appreciate Oakley Truck. And y'all are, we're kindred spirits. We're out there to help individual owner-operators and help our fellow man.
Yeah,
it's a feel-good thing.
Well, thanks everybody for listening to the Oakley Podcast. Check out Gulf Coast Filters. Give Steve Barras a call and ask him about him, and I promise you he will answer all your questions. And if you got a question, you want to ask him, send me a comment, send me an email. I'll be glad to get you in contact with Steve and talk about Gulf Coast Filters all you want. We appreciate it, and thanks for listening.